Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
I guess it would help if I added myself to the stream. Ron is here, and I just done messed up, but small mistake. So this is a really interesting stream today. This is something I won't bury the lead here. I've mentioned a couple times on my channel, I've made reference to the fact that Scientology's Sea Org prison camp, known as the RPF, or the Rehabilitation Project Force, that Miscavige had allowed everybody who was on this program to graduate, and that he had ordered that people stop being assigned to it. And we've heard this from, we had been hearing this over the years from many people who left the Sea organization. But I was never able to get an explanation for this that made sense to me. I always had question marks about the information that I was hearing, and I finally got an explanation that puts any question about this to rest, including what's the official explanation that was given for why a program that was created by L. Ron Hubbard was being canceled by David Miscavige, even though this cancellation is a good thing. I mean, the RPF is a horrible, horrible experience for Sea Org members. And the fact that it is being canceled is excellent. And these, this is the fact that it's being canceled is an example of some of the internal changes that Scientology has been forced to make as a result of the nonstop exposure and ridicule and humiliation and embarrassment that they have been exposed to, thanks to things like Scientology and the Aftermath show, thanks to things that are actually getting, widely distributed in popular culture. The Sea Org's RPF is one of the worst things about Scientology, other than covering up crimes against children, the destruction of families. But the RPF is right up there at the top. Let me just do a double check and make sure I have my right mic working, since that's always a question. Okay, so the explanation has to do with, let me share this screen with you here. The explanation has to do with some technical changes that David Miscavige made in 2013. Now, and this is sort of an in the weeds issue, but I'm going to explain it in a way that I think can have appeal to a broad audience. If you were to ask a Scientologist, what is the Bible of Scientology? What is Scientology's equivalent to the Bible? The scripture, the core unalterable words that you guys have to live by. One of the answers to that question would be these red volumes that you see here. These are called the technical volumes, the HCOB volumes. HCOB stands for Hubbard Communications Office Bulletin. They are always written on white paper with red ink. That's why they're red volumes. The green volumes that you see here are the administrative policy volumes. Those issues are always written on white paper with green ink. That's why they're in the green volumes. These technical volumes, they are as big as they look, if not bigger. Guys, these volumes, let me change the view here a little bit. Oh, okay. These volumes are like massive, and they are fat. And I forget, well, let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and that includes an index. So 17 volumes there, and that includes 4 subject volumes. So 13 volumes, 13 volumes. There's another way a Scientologist might answer the question as far as what is their scripture. And that is this collection. Let me try to zoom in on this here. Oy. I'm gonna have to click on something else. Oh, crapola. Come on, just give me an image, for the love of Jesus. Okay. Going back to this. It won't let me totally zoom in on this. It's a collection of books and lectures. So anyway, that didn't go as well as I thought that would. So let's go back to this view. So L. Ron Hubbard, he wrote books, he gave lectures, and he wrote bulletins and policy letters. There's a couple extra things I could include in this list that aren't relevant to the conversation. The technical volumes, the red volumes, are so important and the policy volumes, because these are the things that he kept writing essentially right up until he died. The books stop after so many years. Even the lectures stop after so many years. The technical bulletins really are the core of Scientology's tech. Okay. And by tech, I don't want to get too far into the weeds here. In Scientology, tech can be divided up into two subjects, and you can see that visually represented here, the red volumes and the green volumes. The green volumes is how to administer and manage Scientology organizations. The red volumes are the how to run a Scientology course room and how to conduct Scientology auditing. So you've kind of got the tech and the admin tech, but it's all called tech. Okay. Because the red volumes have to do with how to conduct auditing, there's also a series of bulletins in the volumes called the co-audit series. And those are the technical volumes that govern, that have to do with the rules governing, change the view here, governing how two Scientologists twin up, pair up, and audit each other back and forth. This is supposed to be a way that Scientologists can go up the bridge, do Scientology's bridge to total freedom without paying the ridiculously astounding prices that you hear Scientology costs. Scientology counters those arguments like, those are just the prices if you want to get professional auditing in the Hubbard Guidance Center. But anybody can train to be an auditor and partner up and co-audit their way up the bridge for pennies on the dollar. And that's true. It's just that auditor training takes a very, very long time. Even these days. Okay, so what's my point here? When Sea Org members are assigned to the RPF, the Rehabilitation Project Force, the Sea Org prison camp, one of the reasons the RPF can take 3, 5, 10 years is because when you're assigned to the RPF, part of what you have to do is you get twinned up with another RPFer, and you have to co-audit your way up a good portion of Scientology's bridge. And I realize, to those who know exactly what I'm talking about, what I just said is not technically completely accurate. You have to twin up and co-audit an awful lot of Scientology auditing. And in the process of doing so, you generally end up co-auditing your way up a pretty good portion of Scientology's bridge. But these are people who've never had auditor training before. And when you're on the RPF, you don't do normal auditor training the way a public Scientologist or even any other Scientologist staff member, Sea Org member, would do auditor training. You do what's called read it, drill it, do it. RDD. Scientology loves its acronyms. So RPFers, someone who finishes the RPF has the equivalency, has done as much auditor training as and I realize these words mean nothing to anyone who's had no experience with Scientology, but you're essentially a class 5 graduate auditor. And yet when you graduate the RPF, because you didn't do the official Scientology auditor courses and you just did read it, drill it, do it, you actually don't have any certificates as an auditor. You're not considered an auditor, even though you just audited someone for probably tens of thousands of hours. Okay. So this read it, drill it, do it approach to learning how to audit and conducting auditing is something that L. Ron Hubbard himself put into place, to the best of my knowledge. And it was key to the RPF program. Read it, drill it, do it. Okay. In 2013, David Miscavige reimagined, reinvented, redistributed all of the auditor training courses for the lower half of the bridge. In other words, all the training courses through class 5 or class 5 graduate. As a part of this new training initiative, David Miscavige canceled read it, drill it, do it. He took the technical bulletins that were called the co-audit series, and he canceled all of those bulletins. And he had them reissued. A new co-audit series of bulletins was reissued. And as a part of this reissue, read it, Drill It, Do It was officially canceled. Now, this allowed David Miscavige to save face and to, for the time being, he was able to issue local executive directives at every Sea Org base that didn't officially cancel the RPF, but officially suspended it. See, canceling the RPF is very dicey because L. Ron Hubbard himself created the RPF. And there's a ton of issues that he wrote, flag orders, specifically about the RPF. So nobody can come along and say the RPF was off source or it was some SP and Miscavige is fixing everything. So how do you cancel the RPF? So Miscavige essentially just issued local executive directives at every Sea Org base that said the current version of the RPF is not in alignment with Golden Age of Tech 2. That was the name of the whole training initiative he launched for the second time, thus the 2, in 2013. He said the current version of the RPF is no longer in alignment, is not in alignment with Golden Age of Tech 2, and is not in alignment with source issues on the RPF, which is actually totally correct. When L. Ron Hubbard created the RPF back in the late 60s or early 70s or whatever it was, it had nothing in common with what has today become the RPF. And so, but the fact that the RPF involves co-auditing and the fact that the Golden Age of Tech 2 and the reissue of the co-audit series bulletins canceled the read it, drill it, do it approach to co-auditing allowed Miscavige to save face and temporarily cancel the RPF. And I say temporarily because, first of all, local executive directives are not an issue type that is enforced forever. Those are temporarily, I believe they expire after a year. You can always reissue them, but they're not permanent issues. And the issue wasn't handed down from the Inspector General Network, which is another term for RTC that the organization in Scientology Miscavige runs. If Miscavige wanted to issue a permanent change to something, he could issue it as an Inspector General Network bulletin, and it would have the force, essentially have the force of policy. By issuing these local executive directives, it's a temporary order. It's not a permanent order. It doesn't have the force of policy. And by saying the current version of the RPF is not in alignment with the Golden Age of Tech 2 and is not in alignment with source, keeps the door open for some new version of the RPF to be created later on. Although I personally don't expect that to happen. And that's why, remember I said that this whole thing about canceling the read it, drill it, do it, that was just a way for Miscavige to save face. For like 5 to 7 years prior to 2013, almost nobody had been being assigned to the RPF. And it was somewhat common knowledge amongst the Sea Org members, at least Sea Org members in a somewhat senior strata, senior HCO, senior qual, for those of you who know, that the RPF was just really bad PR. And a lot of the troubles that Scientology was encountering legally, most of them were coming from people who had left the Sea Org from the RPF or who had left the Sea Org shortly after doing the RPF. The RPF is so abusive. It is so inhumane. It is so destructive to an individual mentally, physically, spiritually. That it just didn't make any sense. And also, when somebody was leaving the Sea Org from the RPF, it would require so many more man hours behind the scenes on backlines to go through their folders, go through their auditing folders, go through the ethics folders, figure out what this person might know or have experienced that could come back to hurt the church later on. That it was like, oh man, we got to get rid of this headache. We got to get rid of the RPF. It's out PR. It's bad PR. But Miscavige couldn't very well just issue an order that says the RPF is out PR, so we're going to cancel it. I know it might seem like perhaps he could do that, but that would not allow him to save face, because who allowed it to get out PR? Well, he did. Who who allowed the RPF to evolve into something that was nothing even similar to what it was when L. Ron Hubbard created it? Well, David Miscavige did. Who is it that has, treated the RPF essentially like a concentration camp? David Miscavige is the one. So he needed a face saver. And the face saver was the golden age of tech. That was 2013. Even though there had been almost no RPF assignments for years leading up to 2013. After that, that was the face saver he needed. Local executive directives. By the way, if anybody out there in Scientology land can put their hands on on an issue, a copy of one of these issues, these local Sea Org EDs that canceled the RPF for now, I would love to see it. If anyone's got one, please send it to me. And that's the explanation that makes sense that I've been waiting for all these years. So let me see. Let me check out the chats here, guys, and possibly in the process of answering some of these chats, I can go a little deeper into the weeds. Maybe you guys will remind me of something I wanted to say that I didn't. Okay, so let's see here. Sue Prav. Is this where Shelly Miscavige is? Sue, no. Shelly, to the best of our knowledge, was never assigned to the RPF. Shelly was reposted to another even more confidential Sea Org base called CST, the Church of Spiritual Technology. CST is the Scientology organization responsible for building these underground nuclear-proof vaults to store versions of L. Ron Hubbard's works where, like, the books are etched onto these steel plates. The policy letters are written in this ink that can't degrade, on paper that can't degrade, and stored in these titanium vaults with I think a neutral argon gas or something like that. Shelly Miscavige is working at a very remote Sea Org base. She's not on the RPF. Thank you for that question. No Kizzy. Until the victims of the RPF are treated properly, this probably only means so much, just more covering their behind. Yes, absolutely. And one thing I was able to clarify today, speaking with someone who has personal knowledge of this, I asked the question, does the fact that the RPF has been nixed mean that the Sea Org is just quickly getting rid of Sea Org members that they would have otherwise assigned to the RPF? And the answer was no. In fact, because there is no RPF, the Sea Org is actually working even harder to hold on to the Sea Org members that are there, because you can't just now penalize someone by sending them to the RPF. So leaving the Sea Org right now is actually a very long, arduous, and grueling process. It can take a year right now to leave the Sea Org the right way. By right way, I mean on Scientology's terms. So if you're a Sea Org member, you can go to them and say, I want to leave. And then they're going to go, okay, but you're going to leave on our terms, or else we're going to expel you from Scientology. You can leave on your terms if you want to be expelled, by all means. But if you don't want to be expelled, you're going to leave on our terms. And our terms means about a year of physical labor and interrogations and just basically doing busy work. And during that time, they're convincing you to stay. And they've gotten to a point now where they've sort of realized we'd rather have Sea Org members stay than have them leave. So at the end of the day, they'll sort of cave and kind of post you wherever you want to be posted, or let you go on full-time study. They're kind of in a frame of mind right now. Well, they'll sort of, once they realize you really do want to leave and you're really not going to put up with any BS, they'll kind of be like, okay, well, what do you want to do? Well, what can we do to make you stay? And then of course, once you've had a viewpoint shift and you're back with the program, well, then they'll start treating you like crap again. It's not like being in the Sea Org has become a positive experience, but they can no longer just willy-nilly be like, all right, we don't like you, you're going to the RPF. They have to deal with the people as people to convince them to stay, to make them want to stay. And anyway, leaving the Sea Org right now is a very tough process. So this was in response to until the victims of the RPF are treated properly. Right. Well, so since there is no RPF, technically there are no victims of the RPF. But if you mean people who've done the RPF and they're now Sea Org members, they're treated just like any other Sea Org member at that point. Okay, Dave Owens. I'd rather invest in growing up in Scientology super chats. Better ROI. There you go. Yeah, really good ROI. I agree. Thanks, Dave. Let's see. Gail Landrum super sticker. Thank you for that, Gail. Go ahead and throw a comment or a question there next time. Happy to read it or answer something. Oh, another super chat. Brick, thank you very much, Brick. Thank you as well. Feel free next time to throw out a little comment or a question next time. Mighty Whitey, the remaining RPF inmates will be transferred to Guantanamo Bay and San Quentin prison A yards. Mighty Whitey. Yeah. So, this change went into effect 10 years ago now. There literally are no RPFers anywhere in the world, which, guys, that's great news. I mean, sometimes you will hear it said that because Scientology policy is intended to be interpreted and applied to the letter, and that because nobody can alter or cancel anything L. Ron Hubbard wrote, that nothing in Scientology can ever change or improve. But Miscavige has shown us that he can and will do whatever he wants to do, whether it's what L. Ron Hubbard said or not. If he wants to change something L. Ron Hubbard said, he'll just claim to have found some new obscure order or policy that was lost in a drawer somewhere or in an attic that L. Ron Hubbard wrote, and some dirty, filthy SP intentionally hid it. Miscavige can do whatever he wants to do because he can claim that it's really what L. Ron Hubbard really wanted. My point here is that Miscavige can change and improve things, but only will when he has absolutely no choice. And this has been one of the huge benefits of, I guess is what I said in the beginning of the video, of all the public exposure, going clear. I'm going to go blank on all the different books. Going clear. What was Jenna Miscavige's? Jenna Miscavige wrote a book. Jeff Hawkins wrote a book. Mark Headley's Blown for Good. The Leah Remini's Troublemaker. The Aftermath show. It's even one of the benefits now of me having this channel and Mark Headley having his channel and Mike Rinder having his channel. Non-stop exposure, full frontal assault, exposing Scientology's abuses. And eventually, Miscavige is forced to change things, even if only to prevent further lawsuits. Okay, let's see. Jesse Schaefer, how does Dianetics compare to red, green volumes? Thank you, Jesse. So all L. Ron Hubbard books and lectures are also considered tech. There is a reference L. Ron Hubbard wrote called Seniority of Orders, I believe was the name of it. And it does talk about the most recent L. Ron Hubbard policy or bulletin always takes precedence over prior ones, even when prior ones are not technically canceled. So Dianetics has never been canceled as a book, even though the procedure in Dianetics is not the procedure in book 1, 1950s Dianetics, is not the procedure used in new era Dianetics auditing that you would get in Scientology. And so Dianetics is still considered valid tech. You can still sell it. You can still do that specific process, but only at the introductory levels. Dianetics at this point is only used as an introductory route to Scientology. And once you're in Scientology, there is a section of Scientology's bridge called New Era Dianetics, but that procedure has almost nothing in common with the procedure that is in the book, Dianetics. Excellent question. Thank you for that. Jason Polychron, I see you there, Jason. I also get your emails. I'll respond to you one of these days. Sorry about that. Another one, Jason Polychron, huge huge fan. Thank you very much, Jason. Frequenzo. Unrelated to the topic at hand, but I'm curious as you have any insights on Stephen Fishman. I've done a video on Steve Fishman. Steve Fishman is a brilliant con artist. He was never a Scientologist. He was never actually a Scientologist. And I broke down the big interview that is published on the internet with him. I think it was actually an interview his lawyer published to try to prove that he was in fact insane. There's one thing Steve Fishman says in his video that exposes the fact that he's a fraud, although a very, very good fraud. And that is when instead of saying OSA, he says OSA. And there's not a Scientologist in the history of Scientology who has ever accidentally said OSA instead of OSA. And so that's how you know Steve Fishman is very good at studying things. He's very good at memorizing them. He's very good at replicating, duplicating, mimicking. But he didn't have enough Scientology experience to know that in Scientology, when you're talking about the Office of Special Affairs, you say OSA. You don't say OSA. And if he had ever spent one day in the Church of Scientology, I'm exaggerating a little bit, he would know that. And it actually shows you that his only exposure to that information was the written word. Because if you read it, you could think it said OSA. That means Steve Fishman had never in his life heard a Scientologist say OSA, which means everything in his story is bullshit. Thank you for that question. Now everyone's going to have to go Google who's Steve Fishman. Actually, just look it up on my channel. I think if you Google Aaron Smith-Levin, Steve Fishman, you'll find the video that I did about that. Okay, Luis Milna. First time I've caught a live. Love your dedication to bringing down this dangerous cult. Well, thank you very much, Luis Milna is that's what I'm going with. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, what do we have here? Janet Cheney. Why would anyone that wants out go through Scientology's way of leaving? Excellent question. Oftentimes, Sea Org members who want to leave the Sea Org, they just want to leave the Sea Org. They don't want to leave Scientology. It's very rare for a Sea Org member to want to leave Scientology. There's usually layers of figuring out what's wrong in Scientology. And when you're in the Sea Org and you're having a bad experience in the Sea Org, very often all you associate your problems with is the Sea Org or the Sea Org members you're working with. You don't usually go, oh, the problem's Scientology, or the problem's David Miscavige, or the problem's L. Ron Hubbard. It's very, you know what I'm saying? So like my wife and I, for example, when we were in the Sea Org and she got pregnant, we said, we're leaving the Sea Org because we're keeping the baby. But we weren't planning on leaving Scientology. Her whole family was Scientologists. My mom and younger brother were Scientologists. We wanted to continue to be Scientologists. We just didn't want to be in the Sea Org anymore. Now, if you're a Sea Org member and you don't want to still be a Scientologist, then you don't have to leave on their terms. Just pack your bags and walk out the door. It's pretty easy. But this is how the Sea Org has such a strong grip on its members, is that those people, remember, in order to be a Sea Org member, you have to be a dyed-in-the-wool, true believing Scientologist. You have to believe in the Prison Planet story. You have to believe in the Scientology Matrix version of existence, that only Scientologists are on Neo's and on the team with Neo and Morpheus unplugging people from the Matrix. So if you believe that story, you don't usually just wake up one day and be like, oh yeah, I don't want to do Scientology anymore. I don't believe in full operating Thetan. I don't believe in full OT. I don't believe in L. Ron Hubbard. If you're a Sea Org member, you believe in all those things. So that's why by the time someone wants to leave the Sea Org, it's usually just the Sea Org that they want to leave, not all of Scientology. Excellent question. Thank you for that, Janet. Scrolling down for the next one. Sarah Woodrow, thank you very much. Rafa Dafa Do. Aaron, have you checked on org in Houston yet? None there, just a mission. Bet you a cold Xenu on draft. Yes, I believe you are correct. I believe there is no Houston org. You know, memory is such a strange thing. Memory is so incredibly unreliable. I could have sworn there was a Houston org, and yet I can presently find no evidence of there ever having been a Houston org. So I think we have to say it was only ever a mission, which is incredible to think. I mean, it's just another example of how small Scientology really is. Houston's a major U.S. city, and there's never even been one real Scientology org there. So yeah, I think you win that bet, Rafa Dafa Do. You win that one. All right, let me find the next one here. Oh, that might be it. Okay, good. That's all we got. Oh my God, 30 minutes? How did we just do 30 minutes? Unbelievable. All right, everybody. Well, I won't keep going on and on. I do have some other streams I might do later today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thanks, everybody who watches until the very end. And I will talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right